Hi, this is Critical Discussions, episode 13, and today we're talking about explosion on Crimean bridge, about revenge, about massive airstrikes that Russia launched after the explosion on Crimean bridge. We're also talking about stupid shit that Elon Musk said about Ukraine, about this whole situation, the whole war, and we'll cover a few other topics. Let's just start right from the main topic, the explosion on Crimean Bridge, which came on 8th of October, and it came one day, like the next day after Putin's 75th birthday, um, which was basically gift, I guess, from whoever has done this explosion. And let's just quickly sort of cycle through several basically ideas or several theories that people have about who's done it, and I'll just go like straight and say that I don't quite think that it's done by Ukraine, because I mean it could be, it could very well be done by Ukrainian, some sort of special forces diversion kind of a group, some kind of a covert operation. I'm not really sure. The truck was driving from the territory of Russia. There are a lot of basically measures that's supposed to be taken for all the trucks that kind of enter that bridge. One of them is basically this sort of like a inspection point. It has like a massive X-ray, and like people like usually can understand what's inside of it, right? So I don't know. I don't know if Ukrainian, some sort of special force diversion group, like I'm saying, would be able to actually account for all of the things to go right for them, for this truck to actually be on that bridge. Plus, some people also kind of say that it's basically Ukraine who's done the explosions on the Nord Stream pipeline, which is also kind of fucking nonsense. Right now, the investigation is ongoing, so there are no evidence presented as of yet, but I'm pretty sure when they will be presented, because there are teams right now who are investigating it from Europe, and we will learn that it was Russia who's done it. It was Russia who's behind this act of terror, basically exploding the critical sort of gas infrastructure, critical to Europe gas infrastructure. And then, so like those events are not like really spaced apart. And now, like this explosion on Crimean Bridge, if anything, I feel like this is my personal opinion. I feel like the FSB, which is Russian Federal Service of Security or something like that, whatever, basically like FBI or something like that. I feel like this is and that's the fucking successor of KGB. Basically, you can think of it in that term. This is like modern day KGB. These are the people who put Putin in power. This is who Putin is, a former KGB bureaucrat, really, but still, like he came from that part, from that kind of special service in Russia, and those people were, throughout the history of Russia, they were like the most notorious pieces of shit, really, the KGB. And now the whole Russia basically is run by a KGB agent, by a FSB agent, by that fucking agency mostly. So if anything, I think that a lot of people are not happy with Putin anymore. A lot of people are not happy with Putin in terms of obviously like oligarchs and whatnot, because they can't fucking just steal and be corrupt as always, and just make a shit ton of money doing some projects, infrastructure projects like construction, so on and so forth. But also there are a lot of people, I feel like at least, who are not happy anymore with Putin inside of the KGB, inside of FSB, because I feel like I don't know if there's any validity to it, but I feel like since he was not able to win this war against Ukraine, and since he will not be able, it's completely understood right now by everybody right now who has two working brain cells, that Russia has lost this war. It's lost this war like 6 months ago, when it couldn't capture 7 months now, but probably when it couldn't capture Kiev, when it actually met the resistance, and when actually European and the United States partners, allies started to help Ukraine. So now it's just a matter of time how long the regime will last, how long this war will continue, how many more civilian people would have to suffer and would have to die. That's the only kind of variables, I guess you can say, because the war is lost, and so I feel like the powerful people behind Putin, because I don't think like in other words, I feel like there are kind of undercover, behind the scenes sort of wars that are going on right now that we don't know about, and we mostly don't hear about, because these are the people who stay in the shadows, really. And I feel like there are people who want to just get rid of Putin, basically. Put him on a sacrificial, as a sacrificial lamb, basically, to the gods of Europe, basically, America, whatever, and say, like, look, it was all his fault. We're deeply sorry. It's not gonna happen ever again. And they will probably find another cunt from KGB who will be put in place of Putin, basically. Which will not be good by any means for the whole world and for Ukraine and so on and so forth, because in the long term, I'm pretty sure that fucking ambitions, this like empire ambitions and so like, all the kind of old shit, I'm pretty sure is gonna stay there in the minds of some morons from KGB. However, at least that would be sort of a short-term solution in a sense. But that's just my speculation. So what I think is happening right now is basically Putin's own FSB, KGB starts to basically get rid of him. I don't know, like if he ordered, probably he ordered actually the explosion of Nord Stream pipeline, gas pipeline. This one, I'm not sure if he actually knew about this. If they, why I think this is kind of a not really, doesn't look like it's Ukraine to me anyway. First of all, and this is the thing that I don't get, like why nobody's talking about it, why nobody discussed this at all. So this truck that blew up on the bridge, which presumably it was the truck that that had a lot of like explosive materials inside. First of all, like who is the driver? Who is the driver, and did he know about this whole thing? If he didn't know, you're telling me that Ukraine, who's been, at least from what I can see from the information I can gather, who's trying to basically participate, if you can say, in this war, by being kind of more humane and civil, if you will. Obviously, understandably, it's a war, and then when people die from both sides, and inevitably Ukrainians will shoot Russians on the battlefield, so on and so forth, in direct contact with rifles, automatic rifles, whatever. But if they use like airstrikes, Ukrainians, it's very precise. It's only on the like basically military objects, usually there are not a lot of like civilian casualties, and not a lot of even personnel casualties, to be honest, because they've been killing a lot of not killing, they've been basically targeting and exploding a lot of like ammo depots, for example, and so on, like things like that. um so going back to the driver, did the driver know? If the driver didn't know about what he's carrying, this feels to me very anti-Ukrainian, because they would be basically saying, not saying, but they would be basically doing, they would be basically putting man's life, like a man who is not like a soldier or anything like that, they would be basically saying internally he will die. And that just doesn't sit well with me just in general as a principle. Yes, he is driving via the occupant territory, on the occupied territory, via the bridge that is basically like a military object, because it's been used since the beginning of this war, this invasion, this part of the invasion, of Russian invasion. It's been used to supply things to Crimea, military things, freaking oil, diesel, to power all the tanks and whatnot. Tanks, all the military equipment, a lot of it anyway. And so, like, it's an understandable sort of, if some sort of were of a HIMARS or other big missile landed on the bridge, in that moment somebody was crossing the bridge, and then it's a casualty. But knowingly basically kill a man even before he's dead, by like just launching him on this like suicide mission without him knowing this just feels so wrong and sits so like weird with me. This just doesn't feel right at all. And I don't know, like, if this some sort of special forces in Ukraine would be so ruthless to actually do this, to basically sign a death will basically for this man. I don't know, probably. Not sure. However, I can definitely name a country that does not care about any civilians, not theirs, not in other countries. And the country is called Russia. And cunts who definitely don't care about human lives are KGB shit. All the scums who try to poison and successfully did poison people in other countries, poison Navalny, all this kind of stuff, like people who routinely bomb cities in Ukraine, kill hundreds and thousands of civilians. They wouldn't care about sending a man on a suicide mission without him knowing this. They don't care about some other casualties that apparently like 3 people died in a car that's been that's basically been eviscerated. Like it was next to the truck on that bridge. So I feel like it's been done by FSB themselves. And this, I feel like it's been done by Russia themselves, because, like I've said, I feel like they're trying to play, somebody in Russia is trying to play some game. That's just my like feeling, gut feeling. Just simply because of the fact that, like, or like, I could understand if this driver, like for example, Ukraine contacted this driver, right? Or not this driver, but in general, found a person who has like stage 4 cancer or something like that, and who is sympathizing with Ukraine, who understands that he's on the last legs and he's gonna die soon, and this is his like good way out in a way, right? I cannot like this is the only circumstance I would feel like could be justified. for like Ukrainian side to actually say, okay, you do this, because otherwise, like I'm saying, otherwise, if this person did not know what he's carrying, did not know that this explosion uh, will occur while he would be driving through this bridge, this is just literally sending a person who's not an military by any means, at least from my understanding, that was a civilian, just sending him to death. That just doesn't sit right with me whatsoever. I understand that like somebody from like Ukrainian side, whatever, could say like, yeah, it's a war and like fucking Russia bombs shit ton of our cities every day and a lot of civilians die. But this is different. One thing is like by chance you are being in the area where some like kind of a missile rocket lands, and another thing is somebody deliberately decides that they will send this man without him knowing this to death. This is just so wrong, so deeply wrong on so many levels, that I don't really think that this, at least if this is how it was done, if that man did not know what he was carrying, I don't think it's done by Ukraine. And if it was done by Ukraine, and if it was done exactly in this manner, that the person did not know his faith, and his faith was decided by some cunts, I feel like that should be also investigated, and those who made that decision should be prosecuted, because they sent knowingly and willingly a civilian person to death. This should not be overlooked, and I don't think, and I don't understand why nobody's talking about this, because this is like, to me, this is like one of the most important thing, because if the person didn't know, I don't give a fuck about this stupid bridge. Like, yeah, it's a fucking happy birthday to Putin, sort of. But again, like, from whom? Like, you obviously, like, it looks like it's probably more likely that Ukraine did this. But at the same time, by the same fucking logic, like, why would Russia blow up the Nord Stream? Well, because Russia wants to say fuck you to Europe, not Russia. Like, Putin himself specifically wants to say fuck you to Europe. That's why. And here it could be somebody inside Russia wants to say fuck you to Putin. So once again, like, just the timeline. The timeline, by the way, let's talk about the timeline. FSB, in the best fucking, in the best wishful fucking unicorn land, in just like, so they did not prevent this as they call it, act of terrorist act, which is not, because it's not really. It's a war, whatever. And technically, Crimea is a territory of Ukraine, occupied territory of Ukraine. So technically, they can do whatever the fuck they want there. And if they want to explode something that they didn't build there, they can do it. If they did it, actually, yeah, if they killed somebody in the process, somebody should be responsible for this and should be punished for it. Like I'm saying, if it was willingly, knowingly. However, so FSB said that they, like, in just a couple days, right? Like in like 3 or 4 days, they've already found like 8 people who presumably have done it. Like, some of them are Ukrainian citizens, some of them are Armenian citizens, Georgian, some Russians, like sympathizers to Ukraine, whatever. I call it a fucking giant bullshit, and that's why I feel like this leads me to believe that it was done by Russia themselves. It was done by somebody in FSB. Because once again, let's talk about this thing. So, how FSB is saying that this bomb, which just a bomb, right? Not like a shit ton of explosive, because just a one bomb, which one bomb, it's supposed to be like a 2 ton or like a ton at least, something like that. So, it's been delivered from Odessa through Bulgaria to Georgia and Armenia, all or masked as a construction, like a film or whatever. So let's just take a trip. Let's just take a trip to the map. So from Odessa, we're going to Bulgaria. Then from Bulgaria, we're going to Georgia, to did they say Georgia? Yeah. To Georgia. Then, for some reason, we go into Armenia. And then somehow from Armenia, we are getting to Russia, which does not have, as far as I know, the border with Russia. So already this does not line up whatsoever. Second thing is that once again, FSB sort of did this, uncovered this whole whatever thing, just in 3-4 days. Do you know what was? Do you know what's happened? What happened after explosion in Minsk? The year was what, like 2010, 2010, 2011, something like that. People who supposedly organized that terrorist act in Minsk were found in like 2-3 days. And by the way, in Belarus there is still KGB, and they don't even change the name. It's fucking KGB. They found supposedly those who did this in just a couple days or wherever. And by the way, they executed those people, most likely just innocent people. And president, aka dictator, aka potato fur, aka fucking mustache cunt, Lukashenko, was on the at the event at that subway, like a half an hour after explosion. Please tell me, why would you be at the place of explosion half an hour later after the explosion occurred? Maybe like 1 hour, doesn't matter really, doesn't change the whole narrative. What if there's another explosion? What if it's the whole plot to actually get you there, or get like maybe as many of this like police and like maybe KGB, whatever, right? And then detonate something even bigger, right? Like, how can you make sure in less than an hour that everything is clean and secure for the head of the country to actually be there? I can tell you how. If it's done internally by some fucking of those KGB cunts. That's how you make sure that there will be no other explosives. And that's exactly what's happened what happened in Belarus, like I'm saying, 2010, 2011, somewhere there. Because problems in Belarus were rising, tensions were rising between society and this fucking cunt dictator. And what's the best fucking way to change the narrative? Some terrorist act, a war, explosion, some shit like that, to distract people from actual problems inside of the country and distract people from the dictator. Not once before, not once after, nothing like that has happened really here in Belarus. So, and after that, dictator just became dictator. Like, that's it. Like, I mean, before he was already dead, but after that, it like really, like, that's it. That's when the country was lost. And so here, I think, is happening exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Once again, like, to make this diversion, if we are to be believed, to believe that FSB actually uncovered these people, this terrorist group in like fucking 4 days. So they send from Odessa to Bulgaria, from Ukraine to Bulgaria to Georgia, then to Armenia for some reason, and then somehow you're getting to Russia. Excuse me, what? That doesn't make any fucking sense. None. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. So, yeah, I feel like, and this, I feel like somebody inside Russia is playing Putin hard, just playing him hard right now. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. We will see how it all uncovers, unfolds, but this is what is happening. I feel like and by the way, which is also something really interesting, is that it was Ministry of Transportation and the securities of Ministry of Transportation who were in charge of security of this bridge, right? They were in charge of checking all these things, whatever. Now, as far as I've heard. Putin actually gave the reins basically to FSB to be actually in charge of the security of this bridge. So, look at this. Somebody at FSB does this explosion. After this explosion, they have even more power, basically. Putin trusts them even more, starts to rely more and more on them. At some point, he will be like somebody at FSB will have a lot of power, a lot of control over Putin. I'm just saying. I feel like this is exactly what's happening. Because there were videos, right, that presumably with this truck that Russian trash fucking media, whatever mesh, somehow got. The fact that we got so many leaks right away, like, first of all, yeah, there is a lot of like problem with corruption in Russia and so on and so forth, right? So that's one thing. But to rely on just on corruption and that this giant thing will not be checked at all and will not go through the usual security gate with this like X-ray and everything. If you are carrying this like a ton or like 2 tons of explosives, your whole like sort of plan relies on the fact that, okay, you're gonna bribe like 1 or 2 guards or whatever. What if there's like a change in shift? What if like a couple more people are there and you can't really like escape going through this X-ray terminal, whatever. I don't really understand the logistics there. But from my understanding, I thought like all of the cars must go through this sort of gates for this X-ray. Apparently not. I don't really understand this. But it feels like to me, the inside job would have been much easier to accomplish, because then you can just order personnel, whatever, to just leave the truck, like whatever, don't really check it. And yeah, I'm just saying, I feel like that was inside job by somebody at FSB, by some cons in Russia who are like behind the scenes are trying to create something. I feel like there are moves and motions right now to remove, basically get rid of Putin, basically from to the wolves, as they say, right? I feel like, I'm not sure really, not sure about that last part, but I feel like it was not an operation by Ukrainian forces. But we will see, I guess, as it happens with these things. Sooner or later, like, some truth will come out, or more information will come out. Maybe somebody of the guards or somebody, if that footage was to be believed. So there were people who were looking at this truck. There were people who actually, there was a person who looked inside of it, just very briefly, but whatever. So these people will speak out, some, if they will not be killed, obviously, before that, but there will be some more information, basically, eventually, which we will learn. And I think we're gonna learn that it was indeed Russia who's done it. Somebody in Russia, not Putin himself, obviously said, oh, yeah, do this explosion or whatever, but somebody in, yeah. And also it might make sense for Russia themselves to do, because there is this like really giant cunt called General Surovikin, who is now like a commander-in-chief of army, basically. And right, like the day after this explosion, or 2 days after this explosion, Ukraine was attacked massive airstrikes on the territory of Ukraine. So by doing kind of this false flag operation, the Surovikin guy or some other people in Ministry of Defense, which is, oh my god, this is in army, okay, in Russian army, were able to basically massively airstrike Ukraine. Before that, they didn't do it. then suddenly they have found a pretense, some sort of justification for really massive airstrikes. I think um, I think the amount of rockets launched onto territory of Ukraine, onto Ukrainian cities, civilian infrastructure, killing dozens of just civilian people. So the amount was like, I think, close to 100 rockets or something like that, missiles, and around half of them, I think, were reported to be intercepted by air defense systems, but more than half, or around half, landed. So let's just talk about this. Let's talk about sort of the response from Putin. So once again, like I'm saying, I feel like he's been set up basically by somebody at his own like KGB, whatever shit, FSB, or in conjunction maybe with army. So he was, I think, set up. This explosion on the Crimean bridge was a inside job to basically justify using even more force on Ukraine, in Ukraine, and launching even more airstrikes onto Ukrainian territory. So, yeah, a lot of people died. More than 10 people, I think, during the shell. And this is insane because Russia is a terrorist state. It should be recognized by the whole world, by United Nations, as a terrorist state, because this is they're not doing anything on the battlefield. In fact, they're losing heavily on the battlefield. And instead they're launching rockets onto cities, on Kiev, Lvov, Dnipro, in basically like in all of the regions of Ukraine. I think the strikes were conducted basically onto all the regions of Ukraine, as far as I understand. And also Russia was basically targeting a lot of energy infrastructure, which is, again, this doesn't accomplish anything really in terms of military sort of advancements. Military doesn't do anything basically to change the battlefield. All it does is just a terror against civilians, against population of Ukraine. That's it. To leave them without electricity, to leave them without water. It doesn't do anything to change the battlefield. And in fact, if anything, that does the opposite. People are getting more and more mad. People are getting mad at Russia, obviously. And also, people in Europe are looking at this and they're saying, okay, we're going to increase our support for Ukraine. Which is actually exactly what happened in terms of Germany, for example. Germany actually sent air defense system to Ukraine. Actually delivered to Ukraine. IRIS-T, air defense system. They've actually said that, okay, we're gonna expedite this process and we're gonna deliver this IRIS-T system like real soon. And then like a couple days later, they actually delivered. And Alexei Reznikov said that a new era of air defense has begun in Ukraine. IRIS-Ts from Germany are already here. I think like one of this system only there. So it's not a lot. Ukraine obviously like really needs right now air defense systems. And from United States, NSMs are coming apparently. And yeah, so if anything, by launching those strikes onto Ukraine, is absolutely indiscriminatory, awful fucking things. Like look at these pictures, right? Like, if you have the video version of this podcast, it's like a business center and there's just normal regular buildings there. There's nothing fucking military about this, and yet it was hit by a missile. Like, this is just unbelievable. And it's unbelievable that United Nations does not still recognize Russia, Putin's Russia, as a fucking terrorist state. Because it is exactly what it is. It is a fucking terror against people of Ukraine, against civilians. Because on the battlefield, Russia is losing and losing fucking heavily. Heavily. And instead of, I mean, they're trying to mobilize people and whatnot, right? But yeah, instead, what all they can do is just to file missiles, enormous, giant missiles. This is just so fucking tragic. This is so fucking tragic. Children's playground. What kind of a fucking what kind of a military object is that? It is so insane. Just in Zaporozhye, just a regular house with people. 16 people dead, more than 100 injured. This is just insane. In Dnieper as well, the missile just lands on the fucking on a road where just the traffic goes. Somehow, interestingly and luckily enough, people in the bus did not. I think nobody died in that bus, even though this like massive explosion happened just like 10 meters in front of it. And what's even more interesting that the next day, Ukrainians repaired this road and removed basically all the rubble and everything and the road and put an asphalt over it. The road was basically like never fucking nothing happened there. But some people did die in those explosions. This is just so fucking tragic. This is insane. And all for what? Because once again, it's just civilian infrastructure, it's just civilian cities. It doesn't do anything to change the battlefield. That's all while in Germany, apparently, were few diversions on like a German railway. Somebody like cut some sort of optical cables or something like that, and there are sort of suspicions that it might have been done by some Russian sort of special forces, covert forces, right? Something like that. Which is yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's just like wherever Russia is, there's basically there's terror, there's death, there's just destruction. Yeah, that country must cease to exist in its current form. Russia, Russian Federation. It should be split into different, multiple, smaller countries. It should be stripped out of its nuclear weapons, or like severely. Well, no, just strip them from all the fucking nuclear weapons because it's not a fucking safe state. And like I'm saying, it doesn't really matter who is gonna be like after Putin, because most likely it's gonna be some sort of a KGB, FSB, some sort of shit from that um, from that sort of branch. And yeah, unless people like that are in charge of Russia, nothing good will come out of that country. So it should have as little physical sort of power in terms of ammunition, in terms of weapons, rockets, whatever, as possible, as little as possible.